how Google Analytics attributes traffic, and why Facebook just never seems to actually match. My name is Chris Mercer. I do go by Mercer, and I am the co-founder here at measurementmarketing.io. Of course, we want to give a special welcome to our Social Media Examiner readers. We love having you here. Welcome as always. Here's what we're going to cover today. Number one, what exactly is attribution? How do we actually think about it? How specifically Google Analytics works when it comes to attribution. Of course, why Facebook won't ever match because of how it works. We'll go into the details there. And we're actually going to give you some information as to what you can do about it to hopefully get these two platforms communicating and helping you to help yourself when it comes to your marketing. Okay, now the 5 pillars of measurement marketing is what we like to relate all of these to. Now, the first one is planning. You got to make sure that you're thinking about what questions you want to answer. You have to think about what information you're going to need, what the results of all of that are going to actually lead to in terms of questions, in terms of answers and marketing actions and everything else that you're going to get. But if you don't have proper attribution, it's really difficult to plan. So that's why it's important to make sure that you pay attention to this so that you can make better plans. Of course, you've got to worry about the build. Now that's using, in this case, things like tracking traffic. You need to make sure that you're tracking your traffic properly, because if you don't do that in the build stage, it's not going to be able to be properly attributed in the first place. You got to remember to do that. Then, of course, you're going to build out all of these reports, and you're going to see a couple of different versions here in this particular workshop. So you can see, the built-in analytics reports and the built-ins that Facebook will offer in Ads Manager. So you can kind of get an idea of the reports, and ultimately you can start taking those reports and begin to forecast future results, and you run traffic against those future results to optimize. That brings the whole pillars together and helps you to ultimately improve your marketing. So that's how these 5 things work together. Now, specifically when it comes to attribution, we have to talk about what attribution even is. Like, what is this whole attribution thing anyway? Well, let's talk about offsite. Let's talk about outside of the online world. Let's assume you just want to go grab a bite to eat. Right? And you want to go to a restaurant. You're kind of feeling a little peckish, a little hungry. You want to go grab a bite to eat. What are you going to do? You're going to ask this guy. You happen to look around your office and you see this guy at work and you're like, yo, you look like you know where you would go to find a good spot to grab some grub. And he says, yeah, cool, go over here. And you go find some place, and now you're at this location and you're at the restaurant, you're enjoying yourself, okay? So that's really a transaction if you think about it. It's an off-site transaction, but it's a transaction nonetheless. You needed to purchase something, in this case, a restaurant meal, and you asked somebody, in this case, this crazy dude over here, to say, hey, where do I go? And he said, hey, go to this restaurant, and you go to the restaurant. So here's some questions. What caused you to go to that restaurant? So what actually caused you to go to that particular restaurant? And another way of asking that, who should the restaurant credit with the sale? So if you're the restaurant manager and you're like, I really want to be able to thank that person who brought you into my restaurant, who should the restaurant actually credit with the sale? Another way of asking that is, how do they attribute the sale? Where do they give the credit to? Where do they attribute the sale to? And in this case, attribution equals this guy, right? This guy, the Be Happy guy, he's the guy who said, hey, go over here, go take a look at this restaurant. This is the restaurant I recommend. He is the one who caused it. He's the one who you asked. He's the one who recommended that restaurant. He is the one who caused that transaction to happen, that meal to happen. Now, how does Google Analytics look at this? Well, if we have to obviously want to make it sort of like an online version. So instead of this guy, we go from the Be Happy guy over to the restaurant of a transaction. Let's bring it more to like an online perspective. So let's say you're going to Google and you're Googling something and you're trying to buy, let's say, a Google Home Mini. Okay, so you want to buy this little Google Home Mini, personal assistant. So you go to Google and you search for it and then you buy it. Okay, that's how Google Analytics might look at this transaction. You might see this transaction. You go to a Google search and then you buy, or maybe it's Google Ads, whatever it is, but some sort of Google property and you buy. So it sees that happening. Now, how it's going to see this, how it's going to record this, is it's going to say, okay, well, I have a last touch transaction. We're going to really reference these as last because it's really, really what matters. It can be last touch, it can be last click, it can be last view, but last is what's the most important thing here. So there's this last component. So it was the last touch is how we're going to reference it. The last touch was Google. And in this case, let's just say it was, Google Organic. So Google Organic was the last touch. And then there was a transaction. It was the last touch before the transaction, before the actual purchase happened. And we're going to reference that as the conversion in this case, because that can be a goal. That could be an e-commerce transaction, but some sort of conversion that was recorded. So the last touch before the conversion would, in this case, be Google, right? Google Organic is what we'll say in this little example. So let's take a look at how this actually looks in Google Analytics. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up an actual live version of Google Analytics here. And where you would find this is in your source medium report. Now, we don't have time to go to the ins and outs of source medium or how to tag traffic. We've done workshops on those in the past, so you definitely want to check those out. In the YouTube channel, you'll see plenty of those. But if you go to Acquisition All Traffic Source Medium, you will see all of your different traffic sources, and you will see all of the different results of your traffic sources. Now, I've brought up one of those results, so we can take a look here. But what I can instantly see, I'm going to use this Google example. In Google Analytics, I've got Google Organic as my traffic source. And if I just go all the way over to the right, I can see over here, oh, good. Okay. So here's the number of times this particular goal was achieved. So I can see a conversion rate for this particular traffic source. So Google Organic is converting 84. So of the 450 users that came in, 84 converted. And Google Organic was the thing that caused them. That was my little Be Happy guy in this case. This was my traffic source. This is the traffic source that's being attributed for this goal. Google Organic is being attributed as that was the cause of this many goals, okay? So that's how Google Organic, or Google Analytics, I should say, how Google Analytics actually sees this information as it comes through. Now, so we've got the meal, we've got a little Be Happy guy, but I want to complicate it a little bit more. What if you talk to your Be Happy guy at work, right? Maybe it's in the morning, and he's like, yeah, you got to go check out this restaurant. It's cool. It's awesome. It's fantastic. And you go, great, I'm going to go do that. But maybe in the afternoon, you start thinking about it again, and you're on a little coffee break with a friend, and you want to get a second opinion, and you happen to ask her. And she says, yeah, you know what? You got to check out this cool, awesome spot, and you end up at the same spot. So in this case, both of your friends, both of these contacts, both of these touches, both of them recommended this particular restaurant. But now you've got problems when it comes to attribution, because if you think about it, what caused you to go to that restaurant? Another way of asking, how does the restaurant attribute the sale? So then again, you're the manager of the restaurant. You want to be able to go to these people and say, hey, what caused you to come in? I want to go and shake their hand. Who does the restaurant manager actually go and shake, right? Which hand does he go shake? What's the attribution? And in this case, it's a little more complicated. Is it the Be Happy guy? Or is it our friend at the coffee shop? Which one of these is the one who actually caused the sale? And so let's bring this back down to Google Analytics, because this is super important when it comes to Google Analytics, how Google Analytics attributes traffic. I'm going to bring this out here, and we're going to kind of replace these with this. Instead of this offsite world, we're going to bring it into this onsite version. So let's pretend you went to Google, and let's say it's still Google Organic or Google Ads, either way, right? You went to Google Organic, let's say, for our example. So you were searching for Google or searching on Google, and you came to the site because you're looking for personal assistance or whatever, but you didn't, like this little Google Home Mini, but you didn't buy it. And then later on, you went to Facebook. And Facebook, there was a bunch of ads that were remarketing to you. And so you clicked on an ad, and then you bought your Google Home Mini, you bought your little personal assistant. So how does Google Analytics treat all of this? Okay, well, Google Analytics will actually look at this and say, well, Google Organic as a traffic source assisted in this conversion. Facebook, in this case, was the last touch, right? We're going to reference it as last touch here, but it was the last source before the actual conversion happened. So that's what Google Analytics will actually record. So it becomes two different versions of attribution. There was the last attribution, that last touch attribution, and then there's the assist. There's the things that came before that. Right? So in this case, Google Organic assisted in the conversion, but really the last touch goes to Facebook. But both had a part to play, and it will actually record all of this. Now, you could reverse it too. You could say, well, what if you went to Facebook, and then after clicking on Facebook and you go to the page and you decided not to buy, but you wanted to do a search. And so you search for like a review on the Google Home Mini to see how it works. And then you decided, yeah, you know what, based on that review, I'm going to go ahead and buy it. Well, in that case, again, Google Analytics is going to record that Facebook assisted in the sale. In this case, Facebook assisted, and then Google Organic would get credit as the last known transaction, or last touch, I should say, before the actual conversion. In this case, the transaction, right? But that was the conversion itself. Okay, let's take a look at how this looks in Google Analytics. And we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to use a different report now. And this is a really important concept in Google Analytics. There are different reports, and they will give you different versions of the truth. They're all the truth. They're all versions of the truth, but they are different, and it's because of how they are calculated. So by default, if you look in the source media report, this will always be last touch. That's all you're ever going to see in this report. But we don't want to see that. We want to see the assisted conversions. We want to see the assisted conversions and the last touch conversions. In order to do that, I'm going to flip over to a different tab here. You go into your conversions reports. So now we're out of the acquisition reports. You go to conversions, multi-channel funnels, then jump into assisted conversions. And what I did here is I brought up our source medium report. And in here, again, it looks pretty close to what this one looks like. You've got source mediums here, all the different traffic sources coming in. But this report also breaks them down into assists and last click. Again, what we're going to reference is last touch. So in this case, if I go to my Google Organic and I want to know, well, how did Google Organic actually come into play in my transactions of actually, improving the transactions, either e-commerce transactions or goals achieved or whatever the thing is that you're tracking in Google Analytics. In this case, it's a goal. So I've got Google Organic. In this case, it says, well, during this time frame, Google Organic was directly responsible for 59 conversions, and it assisted in 57 others. So it was the assist in 57 conversions. So it was an assist and a last click, right? So that's what it's basically saying here. So it's 59 that it was the last click for, and it was an assist in 57 of those customer conversions. And if we're bringing in Facebook, you want to see how Facebook shows. Here's a Facebook paid channel. So we've got Facebook CPC coming in. So Facebook CPC in this case was responsible for 70 last click purchases. So it was the last known traffic source, the last touch before the conversion. And in this case, it was assisted in 19. So it was the assist spot in 19 of those. But now you can see in Google Analytics using this report, and only really these reports under multi-channel funnels is where this works here, and only on these reports. All the other reports are always last touch. This report shows you different stages and different steps. So here is where you will only see, right, in these reports, you will only see the assisted conversions versus last click. And you kind of get an idea of how Google Analytics, because it can see all of the different transactions and steps, how it actually calculates and attributes to those. Now let's talk Facebook. Okay, so now we've got Google Analytics down. Let's do the same thing with Facebook. Let's say we go to Happy Guy and we say, hey, let's go to the restaurant. How does our Be Happy Guy here actually show in Facebook? Well, let's bring it down to, again, on the online world here. So we'll say, okay, you're going to Facebook and then you click on an ad and you buy your Google Home Mini. Okay, so you Facebook and you buy a little personal assistant there. So now when you do that, Facebook will say, well, this is the last touch and this is the conversion. Pretty simple, just like Google Analytics would be, right? Let's look at how this actually looks in Facebook. And I'll almost do a screenshot here. So in Facebook, you will see your results section, and this is Ads Manager. Okay, so this is going to Ads Manager in Facebook. This is typically where people are trying to figure out attribution stuff in Facebook, at least for the most part. So in Facebook Ads Manager, you will come in and you will see your results. And you can see here the Know Your Numbers video caused 1,497 results. That is attribution. That is Facebook saying this was the last known touch, according to Facebook. And these were the results of that last known touch. Now, there are other things in Facebook. There's things called attribution windows. In this case, it's basically saying these are the results within 28 days of somebody clicking on the ad. And there's different things that you can do to adjust all of that. But just to keep it very high level and very simple, which is the easiest, that's what we want to stay for. Keep this high level so you understand the basics. Just think about this as Facebook saying to you, well, the last touch was the Know Your Numbers video in this case, and it caused 1,497 different conversions, in this case for 10-second video views. So that's how that works. Now, how does that work on our multi-touch, right? Where we had different traffic sessions, right? We had the Be Happy Guy and our friend at the coffee shop. So in this case, if I, again, bring them back to the online world and we say, okay, well, I start on Facebook, but I didn't buy. So I clicked on the Facebook ad, but I didn't buy. Then I did a Google search, and then I did buy after searching on Google. Okay, great. Well, we already know how Google Analytics sees that. It would show that Facebook, in this case, as a traffic source, assisted in the sale. And it would say Google Organic was the last known click of that sale, and then obviously tracking to the conversion itself. But what does Facebook see? Well, the problem is Facebook doesn't see this middle part at all. So because Facebook cannot tell, Facebook Ads Manager, again, we're talking about here, the Ads Manager platform does not know that you are on Google Organic because it doesn't have visibility into that. As a platform, that's not its job. Its job is just to track the ads. So what it does is says, well, I can't say that it assisted, and I can't say that it's the last, or I can't say this was the last because it can't see that step before the conversion. So instead it says, well, this is the last step that I knew of before the conversion. So Facebook claims credit and says, well, my ad was the last step before the conversion. And this is why Google Analytics and Facebook never, ever agree. It's a very simple explanation. They are both defining from their version of the truth. They're giving you the truth from their perspective, from what they can see. So in this case, we've got Facebook saying, well, this is the last click, right? This is the last known touch. This is the last thing that they saw before they purchased the conversion, because it doesn't see the middle part. Google Analytics, on the other hand, by default, and when I say default, I mean things like that source medium report and all the other reports that are outside of that assisted conversions report that you saw earlier. All the other reports in Google Analytics, by default, kind of do the same thing. They only look back at the last touch that Google sees. So in this case, Google sees the last touch as Google Organic, and so it says, well, Google Organic is what caused the conversion. Okay, so you've got Facebook, I'm going to flip back. So you see Facebook saying, well, no, Facebook caused the conversion. You go to Google, Google says, well, no, Google Organic caused the conversion. Because that's what that report sees. It only sees the last touch. Only sees the last touch. By default, that's all Google Analytics will see. Now, if you go into the assisted conversions report, that's where you get all of them. And that's where you can see, oh, well, Facebook actually assisted in this conversion. Google Organic was the last touch before the actual conversion. And that's only in that multi-channel funnel report that Google Analytics has. All in those reports is the only place that you will see this stuff. So that's the big reason why Facebook Analytics, or I should say Facebook Ads Manager, and Google Analytics, those source medium reports and all the other reports that you're probably using in Google Analytics, never seem to agree because they're giving you different versions of their truth. Facebook Ads Manager can't see all the different steps, and Google Analytics by default is only using the last touch. So if you do want to actually see everything, you've got to go into Google Analytics and you want to go back into those multi-channel funnel reports, which again, just to bring those up and show you, is right in here. So go to multi-channel funnel reports, and then you can take a look and see all the different traffic sources that are coming into your site, and you get to see, okay, these are the ones that are actually assisting in conversions. This is the number of conversions they assisted in, and these are the number that they actually directly kind of caused. It was the right before they converted. This was the traffic source they saw, and this one maybe they were in a previous visit or a previous session, and that's part of the journey, but it wasn't the thing that actually tipped over into the world of conversion. This is the one that tipped over into the world of conversion here. So hopefully that helps clear things up at least a little bit, because and especially around why Google Analytics and Facebook really just don't ever agree, because they're defining things slightly differently. So we've covered what attribution is. Again, just think about it like asking your friend for a recommendation, and your friend should get credit for the recommendation if you like it. How Google Analytics specifically works, and remember, there's two ways. There's that last touch, which is what the source medium report does, and basically every other report in Google Analytics does. And then there's the multi-channel funnel reports, which are a completely separate section of Google Analytics, and they work a little differently when it comes to traffic attribution. We talked obviously about why Facebook won't ever match. Don't expect it to. It's not going to, because it works differently. It's giving you its version of the truth, but it only sees what it can see, and that's it. It doesn't see the bigger picture. It doesn't see all the emails that you're sending in that might be causing sales, because it just thinks it did, right? So that's why Facebook and Google never, ever, ever match. And we talked about what you can do about it, which is going in and starting to use your multi-channel funnel report in Google Analytics. Specifically, that assisted conversion report is a really good one to start with, because you can go into Google Analytics and you can take your total of what Facebook says that it's selling, and then you can go and look into your Google Analytics assisted conversion report, and you can start to add things together and say, well, Facebook assisted in 20 sales or 20 conversions, and then it was the last click in 80 conversions, and that is close enough to the 115 conversions or 105 or whatever it is that Facebook says they really did do. So that's how you can sort of start to get the platforms to get at least a little bit closer, a little bit of the same neighborhood, if not sharing the same house, when it comes to traffic attribution. Now, your next steps when it comes to really sort of understanding this is you've got to get in there and play. Number one, always keep in the back of your head, last touch is default. Okay, that last touch is default. Whatever the platform is that you're talking about, whatever the platform is, it doesn't matter. They're always tracking by last touch by default. So Facebook is the last known touch of Facebook. Google Ads, we'll talk about the last known touch of a Google ad or some other impression. Google Display, same thing. Last known touch of that display ad. That's what they're going to track. Google Analytics, same exact thing. If your email's coming in and if you've properly tagged your traffic so that it knows it's an email coming in, it'll say that email is the one that caused the sale. But it's always going to be that last touch by default. Google Analytics multi-channel funnel reports. They show every measurable touch point between somebody coming to the site and then ultimately causing some sort of conversion or transaction or goal or whatever that thing is that you're trying to measure as a conversion. So it tracks all of those. And so you can start to see assists versus last touch. And there's other reports in there as well that'll make a little bit more sense when you start clicking into those. So play around with that multi-channel funnel report and always understand attribution. And if it helps, think about the offline world. Think about, well, if I was asking a friend and there was 3 different friends involved, how would I want to see that? There would be a first interaction, there would be the assist in the middle, and then there would be the last touch. And you can get really, really into this. And it helps put things hopefully into at least a little bit more context when it comes to traffic attribution. So that's it. How Google Analytics attributes traffic and why Facebook never seems to match. As always, thank you again for our readers coming in from Social Media Examiner. Love to have you here and looking forward to seeing you on another workshop soon. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you on another video in the near future. Take care.